Over a year ago, I first started making YouTube videos, and Titans was one of the first things I made a video about, along with the rest of the DC Universe shows, such as Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn, and Swamp Thing. All of those videos were pretty bad if you ask me, and with Titans Season 3 being right around the corner, it felt like I should revisit both seasons of Titans and give an actual well thought out review for both of them. Originally, I was going to split this video in two, but with Season 2 of Stargirl and Season 3 of Titans both being in August, I wanted to re-review both shows before doing weekly reaction videos to both of their upcoming seasons. Without further ado, let's discuss Season 1 of Titans. After rewatching the first season of Titans, I can say that I still like the show, but there are a lot of flaws that I can't believe I entirely ignored over a year ago. I legitimately respect the decision of Titans going all in on the whole wanting to introduce multiple superheroes throughout the first season thing. We're introduced the entire core cast of the first season: Robin, Hawk, Dove, Rachel, who most people know as Raven, Starfire, Beast Boy, and Jason Todd within the first 6 episodes of Titans. However, after rewatching the first season, I could totally understand if this decision might be a little overwhelming to a new viewer that isn't necessarily familiar with these superheroes. Several episodes of the first season are focused on introducing various characters and their backstories. In fact, out of 11 episodes, 7 of them are dedicated to that. This decision also negatively impacts the growth of these characters' relationships. Certain characters come in and out of the storyline on an episode-by-episode case, which makes it hard for these characters to have deep relationships and for the Titans to have chemistry as a whole team. Every single member of the Titans has a different level of connection with one another, such as Starfire and Robin having sex with each other very early on in the first season, Beast Boy and Rachel clearly having a thing for each other that'll likely result into a possible relationship in the future, Hawk and Dove having a toxic relationship for multiple reasons, such as Hawk's alcoholic problem, which are expanded upon in the second season, and the list goes on. This is one of my personal issues with the first season. It does such a good job at trying to show off the world of Titans early on, but even later into the season, they're still dedicating a whole episode to introducing an important character from Robin's past who happens to be Donna Troy. It's annoying because on one hand, I get wanting to introduce all of these characters for the sake of not having to do that in the second season, but that strategy doesn't necessarily pay off. As a person who does care about these characters, it's hard to not wish that there were more episodes focused on actually growing the relationship of the Titans, instead of continuously using traumatic situations to grow their relationships. Using traumatic situations to build relationships is such a tiresome trope and doesn't necessarily work early on in superhero shows, especially if it's being continuously done over and over again like it is in Titans. Even though this is a fairly decent show and has a storyline that can keep the viewers hooked in the first season, you can't help but feel like you're watching the show stumble on its own potential. In comparison to the Arrowverse shows, which I do give a lot of fair criticisms, Titans feels like it's trying to be overly edgy throughout the first season just because it can be edgy, and it also doesn't help that it emphasizes that ongoing edgy theme by constantly throwing a blue filter over various scenes. It's like they want to drill in the trauma, sadness, and the dark themes they're trying to sell you during the first season, but it doesn't necessarily work when you have such a good show like Doom Patrol. In Doom Patrol, those characters actually struggle with real types of traumas, and the show dives into those traumas in interesting ways while also making the characters grow from them. When you compare the handling of trauma in Doom Patrol to how Titans handles trauma, Titans just comes off as pretentious. On top of that, the characters in Titans don't ever truly get to build the relationships after going through those traumas, considering almost every time they're finally together, the story requires sending a character off for story-related reasons. Robin, for instance, is always running off to do his own thing. He leaves the team at least 3 or 4 times in the first season of Titans, which, just to remind you, has a total of 11 episodes. So how good can Robin's relationships actually be if he's always running off to do his own thing? And the story reasons aren't necessarily great either. Like, one of the reasons that Robin runs off is to see Donna Troy, who he's close to because they have a relationship from their pasts. But it's only done so Donna can help Robin translate a note that Starfire can't. Speaking of story reasons, I hate the fact that Titans decided to make the second to last episode of the first season be about Hawk and Dove. Episode 8 literally gets good at the end just for it to be followed up by an episode that dives into the backstory of 2 characters we haven't seen for several episodes. The whole purpose of the episode literally was just to show us more traumas that Hawk and Dove were struggling with in the past, how they ended up falling for each other, and how they became superheroes they already are during the time period that Titans takes place in. The placement of the episode is beyond weird, and it's kind of the last thing one would want to see after the previous episode finally getting good at the end. It's not even that I don't want to know about Hawk and Dove, but it just feels like the placement is so poor for absolutely no reason. There's a time and place for backstories or flashbacks, but ruining the pacing at the absolute end of the season when things are finally getting interesting wasn't the right choice. It's a flawed decision like this that made it hard to look at the first season of Titans in a strong positive light again. It sucks because the first season legitimately has elements in it that interested me, such as the overall main story revolving around finding out the mystery of Rachel and her father, some of the characters' backstories being more interesting than others, and on top of that, I have to give credit to the action scenes. Most of the action scenes with Robin fighting actually makes him look like a superhero, and those action scenes also keep the viewer entertained as well. However, I can't necessarily say the same thing about the CGI in Titans though. For example, Beast Boy can only transform into a green tiger, and it doesn't look that great at all. And neither do some of Starfire's action scenes when she's using her fire powers. Do they get the job done? Yeah, sure, but they're not entirely consistent in terms of quality, maintaining your entertainment, and at least making her look like the badass Starfire is throughout the show. Rachel's father is also another prime example of terrible CGI. I don't know why they chose to put Trigon in the middle of the day because he doesn't look good at all. He looks terrible, and deep down, I'm sure that most people would agree that his scene could have been saved if it took place at night. Titans' first season isn't nearly as good as I remember, but it was definitely heavily carried by a few things. Characters that I actually wanted to see grow, seeing the answer to the mystery of Rachel and Starfire's connection, the entertaining gritty action scenes, it being related to DC, and of course, my love for Teen Titans. It's just not enough for me to be like, you know what, the first season is really good anymore. After rewatching the first season, it was really frustrating to see the missed potential, but now it's time to talk about the second season of Titans. The first season of Titans ended off with Dove being awakened from a coma in the hospital because of Rachel, Starfire getting her memory and shit back, Trigon finally making his appearance after several episodes of people talking about him, all of the Titans finally getting together to save Rachel, Robin getting himself controlled by Trigon, and the fate of the world possibly being at risk. Which means you'd think that season 2 of Titans would finally get going. However, the second season of Titans is still a mixed bag. There are good things about the second season, such as finally seeing the Titans actually build chemistry. For example, Beast Boy and Jason Todd training together in the second episode, and Starfire and Wonder Girl hanging out in Chicago. The Titans finally get a villain that they need to worry about in Deathstroke. And arguably my favorite episode of Titans overall, which starred Beast Boy by himself trying to kill time in the Titans Tower. However, the second season of Titans is even more frustrating considering it's all over the place. It almost feels like it wants to do so many things at once that it forgets what's the long-term purpose of not only the season, but the overall show in general. For instance, the first 3 episodes spend a total of 139 minutes trying to set up all of these storylines at once. Rachel is trying to understand her new powers. Deathstroke is back because the Titans have assembled again. Rose has been planted in the Titans Tower for the long-term Deathstroke con. Hawk and Dove are still having relationship problems. Dr. Light exists and he's a side villain. Jason Todd's path to becoming Red Hood. Starfire needs to be concerned about Blackfire coming. And members of the Titans getting mad at Robin for turning these young kids into Titans. All of that is happening within the first 3 episodes of Titans, and there's only a total of 13 episodes for the second season. You'd think that those would be the only storylines in this season, but as the season progresses, it spends even more time on other storylines, such as establishing Jericho's storyline, giving Robin a pointless prison arc that's made for him to eventually turn into Nightwing, and there's even an entire Cadmus arc for Superboy and Beast Boy. The entirety of the second season doesn't respect the viewer's time whatsoever. It even does the same thing as the first season, where a storyline seems to finally be getting interesting. And then, the follow-up episode is a flashback about something you likely won't care about since it's not relevant to the previous episode, which left you with an interesting cliffhanger. Case in point, episode 3 ends with Jason getting caught by Dr. Light after trying to play hero, but episode 4 is one massive flashback to showcase both Deathstroke's troubled relationship with his family and that he killed Aqualad in the past, which heavily impacts Donna since she and Aqualad had a thing for each other at that point in time. It's like they want you to care about the past so badly, but at the same time want you to care about 15 other things going on in the present. It doesn't come off the way they want it to, because at that point, why not just start at the beginning of the timeline for this show? Why not just let us see the very beginning of the Titans, considering everything in the past is way more tolerable than the present? It's obnoxious to make us sit through flashbacks that are stronger content-wise than the present-day storylines, considering they're not forced to be written fully fleshed out stories. They literally just do flashbacks in Titans to give us selective moments that give us a small amount of context to make something in the present make more sense. These decisions also give me the feeling that almost nothing is actually going on, even though you're actively watching things happen throughout the season. It's such a baffling feeling considering there are so many storylines happening at the same time, but with all of these flashbacks, odd episode placements, and poor writing, it's hard to truly grasp onto anything that's actually going on. Speaking of writing, none of these characters act like actual human beings by any means whatsoever. Yes, they're comic book characters, but they're almost all equal levels of terrible human beings, besides maybe Rachel and Beast Boy, but that's because they're both young teens. Robin just acts like an absolute terrible human being that's so self-absorbed in trying to get over his past decisions that he eventually has a psychotic break. Starfire doesn't really do anything bad, but she has no real personality until the second season when she finally has her memory back and begins to grow on her own. Don't even get me started on Hawk and Dove. It's entirely ridiculous that these characters try to pretend like they're all better than each other and trying to give each other speeches about being a better person or telling each other to stop lying to one another, but they all continue to do the same thing. I can't even get on Jason's case because his whole character is basically meant to be a young, naive teen who's overly eager and tries to do things that are way over his head, but most of the time he does it because he wants Robin's acceptance. He is literally Robin 2.0, and all he wants is for Robin to like him. But because Robin thinks he's too young, he pushes him away and treats him like absolute trash, which then results in the rest of the Titans following Robin's lead and treating him like trash too. These Titans are so bad that they basically push Jason into almost jumping off a gigantic building in the city. Yes, they're that terrible, but we're supposed to buy that they're supposed to be heroes. It's gonna be an insulting comparison, but if you're trying to build a bunch of misfits as a heroic team, you might want to take a look at the Guardians of the Galaxy at that point. They're all literally flawed heroes that are overdramatic and egotistical, but they still find ways to actually make sure each member is a good person, even when they disagree over the dumbest things. Hell, want me to not use a Marvel IP? Fine, look at Doom Patrol. Every member of the Doom Patrol is a misfit because they're all inherently flawed people due to their trauma, and it's actually buyable. In Titan's case, almost none of these characters are inherently likable because they're all ridiculously pretentious and acting like they're better than one another. Hawk and Dove aren't even Titans either. Their whole story arc is them struggling to be Titans because they have other inner demons they need to fight before being able to healthily balance being a Titan again. They can't even do that because of Deathstroke coming back. It's like, I get these are comic book characters, but if you're gonna make your core characters flawed misfits, Titans is the prime example of what not to do. I can't necessarily finish talking about the second season without one specific moment, which is the finale of this season. The entire season builds up to this moment where the Titans are fighting Deathstroke in this carnival, and Donna ends up getting killed by a pole of some sort. The worst part about this death is that Superboy is literally right next to her, and the pole might be one of the slowest poles ever made, which means that this death was entirely avoidable and just done for the sake of emotional effect at the end of the season. We're literally talking about comic book characters that would prevent it from happening in milliseconds because they're comic book characters. It's like the Flash couldn't save someone from being hit by a car in the world's slowest street. I simply don't get these types of decisions, and even if they were to make a storyline in the third season when Donna comes back to life because she's resurrected or whatever, that's not going to do anything for me at all. We've seen this done before in shows such as Arrow, so there's honestly nothing we haven't seen when it comes to the whole bringing back a dead character to life because story reasons. That's why. It's stupid nonsense like this that makes the show ridiculous and absolutely tiresome to watch. It's tough, you know. I want to like Titans and I want to actually be able to enjoy this show, but there are so many things happening and so many poorly made decisions going on within the show that I can only genuinely like selective moments from either season. Honestly, that's what Titans does best. It gives you selective moments that are so good, or at least so much better than everything else going on throughout the season, that you kind of hold on to those moments because you like them so much. I can't blame them for being able to land those moments, but I wish they gave that love to the entire season of this show. The characters and world of Titans equally deserve love, but I get it. It's really complicated to use every character correctly while giving them the attention they deserve. I don't think anyone told the writers to introduce a million characters within 2 seasons though. That's just a self-made problem and could have been prevented if they chose a different style of storytelling or specifically chose a better starting point for Titans. This finally leads me to this question. What can Titans do to finally live up to the quality of other shows like Doom Patrol or Stargirl in Season 3? Well, the show needs to figure out what it wants to be and where it wants to go for a storyline. Stop adding too many characters, stop creating too many sub-story plots, and try to make actual good use of a season's episode length. Enough with the flashbacks, enough with the pointless episodes that are fixated on one character for 35 minutes, but then the last 5 minutes of the episode somehow reconnects to the previous episode, which results in us waiting for another week for the actual continuation of the story. It's a good thing that this show doesn't have the meta-human of the week format like The Flash does, but at least that gives The Flash some level of consistency. That's what this show actually needs. Consistency. Stop relying on people being interested in this show or being willing to give the show a chance because of the characters it's based upon. That won't give the show a long life. Find a way to tighten up the stories, give the characters growth that makes them act like actual people, make the universe of Titans even more interesting, and find ways to somehow connect it to other shows, even for just an episode if you have to. The Arrowverse might be ridiculously mediocre, but those crossover events do numbers for them. Use this miniverse of Titans, Stargirl, and Doom Patrol to your advantage for once in a lifetime, besides trying to sell the Doom Patrol show to Titan viewers. No matter what, Titans has the potential to be a good comic book show, and it's hard to not see it. But hopefully, the third season is better than seasons 1 and 2. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you really enjoyed this video, hit that sub button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, write a comment down below. Don't forget to keep it real with peace, love, and positivity.